Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Preparing you now for Week 15 in the NFL. Plenty to talk about in Eagle land yesterday. Back with a full show again today after some technical difficulties yesterday. Appreciate everybody being here. Johnny Mack, how you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing well. Getting ready for the big rainstorm. So for Eagles, I assume we'll be inside today, practice. But time marches on. The Pittsburgh Steelers coming up. So good opponent. Little bit of a keystone battle. A lot of Steelers fans. You know, these are two of the best traveling fan bases in the NFL. So, you know, one of the few times where the opponent probably can match the Eagles fans' passion. Steelers got a lot of passionate fans as well.
Yeah, it should be a good game, man, with the Steelers and the Eagles. 10-3 Steelers, 11-2 Philadelphia Eagles. The Battle of Pennsylvania. Johnny Mack and our viewers feel the need to pick on me this morning and give me a little PTSD and say no audio, no sound. You guys better be kidding with me. Giving me PTSD, doing all that. Johnny Mack, what's on the agenda for the Birds today? I know you're going down there for practice. Jalen Hurts set to speak today. That's going to be an interesting one after some of the drama that has ensued the last couple of days.
Yeah, Jalen Hurts will speak today. It's typical Wednesday press conference. Like I said, most likely looking at the weather. The Eagles are going to be inside at the NovaCare Complex practicing. Nick Sirianni will talk before practice, so he'll get all the questions lobbed his way as well. And he spoke on WIP yesterday, so you probably already got a hint of what he's going to say about the whole situation. Yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. I got to be honest with you. I think in a lot of ways that it could help the team. And from that standpoint, I don't think the problem is any disconnect with any relationship. I think the problem is that the passing game stinks right now.
Yeah,
this is going to force them to address it instead of saying, well, we're winning games, so who cares? And I think this is going to force them to course correct. And I think a lot of ways it's actually going to help the Eagles. I really believe that.
Yeah, it definitely has the chance to. It doesn't mean it's a guarantee, but it certainly has the chance to galvanize a team and maybe, I
don't even know about galvanize. I'm not talking about anything emotional. I'm talking about this puts a highlight on just how bad this passing offense has been. And it's got to be fixed at all costs. No more hesitation. No more, but the Saquon's great and the defense is good. No more crutches. They got to fix it. Period. And that's a good thing.
We'll see if they end up doing that. That's not going to be. It's easier said than done, right, Johnny Mack? I mean, I don't know what the problems seem to be.
I think a lot of people misunderstand that the people like me are talking about turning into the number one passing offense. That's not what we're talking to. We're talking about. We're talking about turning into a competent passing offense. And there is no reason this can't be a competent passing offense with the talent on hand. Again, I'm not talking about number one. I'm talking about what we talked about in the spring about the defense. Forget about that leap from 31 to 1. That's not going to happen. Leap from the rest of the season, 31 to 15 or 16, somewhere in that range. You can't throw like if you would have gave me an over under last week going into the Carolina game, 118 passing yards, I would have laughed at you. I would have said, well, I'm taking the over. It can't be worse. Well, it got worse. And I'll say the same thing going into this week, over under 108. I'm taking the over. It can't be worse.
Good night. We better take the over.
I think. So part of it is just, common sense. Just get it right. Just get it going. And I think this will help in that direction. But the emotional stuff, I think that's overblown. They got to fix the passing offense. That's it.
Nothing emotional about it for Johnny Mac. Do you expect to talk to AJ Brown today or no?
No, he typically doesn't talk on Wednesdays. He's a Thursday or Friday guy, so I don't think that's going to change. The only thing that is going to be notable is if he talks at all. Last week he had that little stretch where he took a break, and we'll see if that happens. I think that would be the worst way to go because that will create more unneeded drama. I'm sure the PR staff will explain that to AJ, so hopefully,
right.
He'll speak at some time this week. But if he doesn't, yeah, I think that's the worst. That's the worst way to handle it.
We'll see what ends up happening there. We have Mike Gill and BLG set to join us today on the show. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning. Got a good crowd in here already, and it's building rapidly. So hit that like button for us, everybody. We appreciate you joining the show today. A lot of fun yesterday talking to some of the people. We had issues on all shows yesterday, Johnny Mac. It was not Birds 365.
So it was a StreamYard issue, right?
For us, it was. For Big Sills, it was not a StreamYard issue. He's having rolling blackouts in California. So he had to do a show from the Hummer on his phone for about 30 minutes before it overheated. And then we did it. I did a little Eagle roundtable yesterday and brought up some of our great viewers on the show. So it was a lot of fun.
You know, Sills has got to get out of the People's Republic of California.
I told him that, man. I said, get the hell out of there, silly. I don't know what you're doing. And he's like, I got a litany of people who will take care of me down in South Florida. I'm like, get down there, man. What are you waiting on? But anyway, I digress. So we'll have Mike Gill coming up in 10 minutes. Looking forward to talking to Mike Gill this morning and see what he has to think of all the drama in Eagle Land. John, early look here at the Steelers game. How do you see this? We're a little far out yet. We're not going to dive fully into the preview yet, but this is one of the best games. This is going to be a great game. One of the better games of the year for the Eagles and a tough opponent. You got to know Mike Tomlin, I'm sure, is, looking at some of the drama and saying, let's try and get these guys emotional early, get AJ Brown pissed, get Jalen Hurts pissed. How do you see this game coming up this weekend, week 15?
Yeah, it's a good opponent, good test. I mean, obviously from where, a couple weeks ago, very similar to Baltimore, but a little bit less talented. I would say, clearly the Eagles are the more talented team, but Pittsburgh is generally always overachieving. That's been the case again this year with Mike Tomlin. Never had a losing season, all that. Just a tremendous head coach, CEO coach, and he gets the same crap Nick Sirianni does. So don't act like Philadelphia is different. But, TJ Watt defensively, that's where it starts because that guy can wreck a game. Usually, the Eagles are better equipped to handle him than most, obviously, with Lane Johnson and Jordan Mailata. So that helps. Offensively, they're not explosive, and probably George Pickens isn't going to play.
That's a big hit for them.
Yeah, and he would be their explosive guy, and they're not that explosive anyway. So there's some limitations there. I think that helps. A lot of ways I look at Pittsburgh, and I don't get why they're 10-3 from a talent standpoint. So, like I said, a little bit of an overachieving team. But yeah, difficult opponent because they're so fundamentally sound and coached well, good organization. A lot like the Eagles from that perspective. But the Eagles, I think, just have more talent. If they start utilizing that talent correctly on the offensive side of the ball, I think everything will be fine. And we'll see if my take on the emotion and all that bull bleep is wrong, and they do let this affect them. But I don't see it from that perspective.
You don't see this at all as something that could put a wedge in the locker room at all?
No, I don't.
That's fair.
I talk about, and I'm glad Zach Berman talked about the same thing. I talked about it first, but
you did. You've been talking about that for years. I know.
I mean, the assumption that some fans have that all 70, 75 people in that locker room get along is always wrong. And I always go back to, I tell people to look at their personal life and look, do you like the next 75, 80 people you're going to meet? No, nobody does. Doesn't exist. So when stuff like this kind of happens, it's like, all right. I don't know about their personal relationship. They seem to get along fine. I'm sure they don't spend as much time together when they were both single and, um, had more time to spend together. And
Right.
now AJ's got kids, and I'm sure
Yeah, and you're
that
working together all day. It's a little different to hang out with somebody after you're working with them all day than if you
yeah.
weren't.
So people's relationships change, but yeah, I don't think they're angry at each other, or anything of that nature. But yeah, so I think it's completely overblown.
Now, you said on the postgame show something that ultimately turned out to be right, which is great instant reaction by you on the AJ Brown comment. You said, boy, one word answer. That's not good. And the funniest part about it is, John, you didn't even hear it. I told you it on the postgame show. I said, AJ Brown just commented. He said passing as the one word answer. And you said, that's going to be an issue, a one word answer. So nice job by you. But you don't, when you think about, you don't have an issue with him saying that. You have an issue with what he's talking about, and that's the passing game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I have an issue with the actual passing game.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people in Eagle fandom world, John, that are like, oh, they're mad at AJ and they're mad at BG for for bringing the inside business to the outside, which I understand. But a lot of people are leaving out that the reason these things were said in the first place is because of the issue on the field, which is the passing game.
Yeah, exactly. And from the standpoint of AJ, again, it wasn't that he said the passing game. Everybody said the passing game. Jordan Mailata said the passing game. DeMonte Smith said the pass. Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni yesterday, not up to our standard. Everybody agreed. Everybody knows it in the building. The fact that he only said one word, whereas if you take Jordan Mailata, who, I was talking to right before AJ talked, then it became, he said the same thing, but he just expounded on it. So everyone, hey, that makes sense, and moves on to the next guy. When you just say short and like AJ was and fragmented, then you allow people to speculate on your motive, other than, oh, well, he's just pointing out the obvious.
Right.
Because you don't need to improve anywhere else on offense. So what do you want him to say? It's obvious. You just came off the field and threw for 108 yards, 83 actually net, 83 yards. And people are trying to defend this passing game. Not a lot, but a lot of people, well, they're winning games.
Yeah,
well,
I was called a charlatan from somebody because I pointed out that we were bottom 5 in the league in passing, and they're like, he's a charlatan. We have the great passer rating, and we have this, and we
now they're 31st.
Extrapolated Hurts's stats, he would have his greatest numbers ever. And I'm like, well, it's not a perfect world. You can't just extrapolate the stats.
Well, that's the problem. You can't extrapolate the stats. That's the problem. The reason is passer rating and all that stuff. And we tried to get as much as we could from Kellen Moore yesterday.
It's because his attempts are way down. It's a lot easier to have a great passer rating.
And passer rating for, by the way, that's the worst stat in the world. I used to have, for a number of reasons. First of all, everybody who quotes it has no idea how it's even calculated. Nobody knows how it's calculated.
Right.
Secondly, they treat it like gospel, don't even know how it's calculated. Now, it's a complicated formula. You can Google it if you want to see the entire formula. But bottom line is, if you throw a lot of interceptions, you have a bad passer rating. If you have a low number of interceptions, you have a good passer rating. Then if you have a lot of touchdowns versus a low number of interceptions, you have a great passer rating. That's when you get, that's what Lamar Jackson's been doing this year. So it's a very old school, meaningless stat to begin with. But the whole point of the Eagles post-bye has been, it looks like they overemphasize taking care of the football. And at least from Kellen's not going to admit this. Nick's not going to admit it. And we did ask Kellen Moore the question yesterday. Basically, did you guys go too far and say, all right, we got to limit these turnovers at all costs? And as the quarterback now become hesitant because he's worried about turning the football over. I don't know if that's what's going on. It's a legitimate theory. I'll say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, passer rating. Yeah.
Is this the week to get it going with the Pittsburgh Steelers coming to town? They got a couple good DBs. They got Minka Fitzpatrick back there. Joey Porter's been not having a great year for him. He's been getting a lot of pass interference penalties, but I think it's one of those games where if there's a game to rely on your physicality, it might be this one versus the Steelers, but they're probably going to need to pass the ball to beat the Steelers. How do you see it playing out this weekend with that?
Well, same with Baltimore. But when you see Baltimore play Pittsburgh, it's the best rivalry in the NFL because they're both going to punch you in the mouth and they're both not going to back up. So to me, it's physicality versus nobody's going to have the edge there. But, defensively, this is not the team to take advantage of. This is one of the best defensive teams in football, in theory. But, they've been so bad in the passing game. You even say, like I said, they're coming off Carolina where it should have been easy. And you're going into Pittsburgh, and I'm at the stage where, well, it can't be worse. Even against the good defense. That's kind of where we are with the passing game over the past 2 weeks, the past 2 games. It literally can't be worse. Not literally, figuratively. So, yeah, but in theory, this is not the game you probably want to get off, but you have to.
You want to be forcing balls to AJ Brown to get him happy versus Steelers. Not
well, and that's the part I'm going to push back on all week. It's not about forcing the ball to AJ Brown. First of all, AJ Brown's the only one who gets the ball when they do throw it. Again, 4 targets, 4 receptions. He's already got it.
And Jalen Hurts is going into this game. He's looking for AJ Brown. He's lining him up and he's letting it rip, baby.
But I'm just pushing back against your statement. They're going to do it to keep AJ happy. No, they're going to do it because they have to fix the freaking passing game.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
And they got to make Devontae happy as well. And, people shit on Howie, and rightfully so, for giving up a 3rd-round pick for Jahan Dotson. I don't know anything about Jahan Dotson.
I know. We can't blame Jahan Dotson for
No.
No.
A lot of people do. I can't. He doesn't get me. Are you kidding me? Nobody gets involved down roster. And by that, I mean the secondary receivers. So it's really, really tough to grade them. But yeah, I mean, AJ's at 836 receiving yards already, and he's missed 3 games. He's the only one who gets the ball.
We'll see what ends up happening this weekend. A lot to look forward to with this game with all the ensuing drama in Eagle Land, John. 9 wins, and you're talking about all this BS on a Tuesday. Now it's a Wednesday, but a Tuesday yesterday. Only in Philly, and you got to love it. I appreciate everybody being here. Hit that like button. DH Eagle, good to see you in here. Hit that like button. Callie Baby, Mike Fittery, Chan's in here, flexing and stepping. Jimmy Wem, what's up, Jimmy? SMD Eagles. Don't forget to hit that like button, everybody. We appreciate you all being here. We'll get to Mike Gill coming up next here on Birds 365. Before I get to the break, I do want to tell you guys about the great people at BetUS. Check them out. I just put the promo code up on your screen. And if you're listening on the podcast, the promo code is YouTube150. Promo code gives you 150% sign-up bonus on your very first deposit. And you even get 125% on your second and third deposits, all up to $2,000. So deposit less and bet with more at BetUS. Go to betus.com.pa. That's betus.com.pa. They have the fastest payouts in the industry, 24/7 customer support, and they'll even give you your own custom account manager. So go check out BetUS. Use that promo code YouTube150. We'll be back in 3 minutes, everybody, on Birds 365.
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
We noticed that there was mold creeping into our basement about a year and a half ago, and wanted to make sure that we were getting rid of the problem permanently. We actually reached out to several different contractors to get it resolved, and actually 2 of them recommended DryTech to us as a long-term solution. Other than the noise factor, we wouldn't even know that there was work being done on the basement level. It's really been a clean process for us.
Score and save this football season on your car insurance. Before the next game, save up to 40% on your auto insurance policy. That's right, 40% savings. Call an audible this season and contact the Del Val Insurance Group. They're an advocate for you, not an insurance company. That means they'll get you the right coverage and save you up to 40%. Call managing partners Fran or Jim of Del Val Insurance, 215-354-0122, or score and save at dvigi.com. dvigi.com.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365 here on JAKIB Sports. Joined now by Mike Gill from 97.3 ESPN down the shore. Make sure you guys follow Mike on all the platforms at Mike Gill Show, and go check out his YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show as well. Mike, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Good morning, boys. I'm doing all right. Are we still friends?
Yeah. What is our relationship, Mike? I don't know. We used to spend more time together. So, yeah, I'm of the belief that I don't think that's a big deal. I really don't. I think the big deal is that the passing offense stinks, and there's no reason the passing offense should stink. And I'm not talking about #1 in the NFL. The Eagles' passing game does not need to be great. It's just got to be average, even below average. What it can't be is stinks.
Yeah, and it stinks right now. And, this almost feels like last year, not where the bottom fell out of the season, but where we just kind of kept accepting that, hey, they're finding ways to win, and that's what good teams do. And, and then all of a sudden it stopped. They just couldn't figure it out anymore. And it's like, well, they're running the ball and it doesn't matter. And that's who they are. That's their identity, until you need to be able to do something else. And maybe they can't. You find out about yourself as the seasons go on. And this Saquon Barkley having if Saquon Barkley's out on pace to break Eric Dickerson's record, are we looking more and more at the passing situation a couple of weeks ago? You have something that has overshadowed the ineptitude of the passing game. And look, I joked on my show, this offense should be Tecmo Bowl. I need 4 plays with this group of guys. This isn't hard, guys. This should not be this difficult with the talent you have. You know how many teams in this league would die to have the talent there? Could you imagine if this group of guys, the receivers, running back, offensive line, were on the field with Joe Burrow the other night? It would be 50 points a game. So they certainly have a problem, and I don't know that it's fixable with the personnel they have, and that sounds wild to say.
Where's the problem for you, Mike Gill?
It's got to be, look, the quarterback is the problem, and that doesn't mean he could be a good player, but he's the weak link. He is outshined by everybody else in the room. He's the lesser of everybody. He's not more important than Barkley. He's not more important than Brown or better than Brown. He's not better than Smith. The offensive line is a better unit than he's the guy. He has to play better. There's plays out there not being made. And look, there's their elementary plays. It's not like they're asking him to do a whole, like, this play is really difficult. No, there's a guy running a 5-yard slant right in front of your face. He's got pink shoes on. If you can't see him, we have a problem. So I feel
why
like
do you think so many people are afraid to say what you just said? I said it on your show yesterday. It's the quarterback.
That's a good question. I think people are ripping the quarterback, though. I mean, at least on my show, he's getting a lot of heat, and he has been. And I feel like there's been a bunch. I feel like because he has accomplished this before. We have seen him. So anytime somebody does something and we've seen it, we kind of revert back to, well, I've seen him do it, so he can do it.
Right.
I think Dan Orlovsky brought up an interesting question yesterday, which was, is he playing bad or is he bad? Which one is
question?
It? Right? Question. Is he playing bad or is he bad? I feel like it's somewhere in the middle where I don't think he's bad. We've seen him be really good. And I go back to, look, that Super Bowl, when you play like that on the biggest stage, you can't tell me like the moment's too big for him playing on Sunday at 1:00 against Carolina. That like, oh, the moment's too big. No, he played against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl and went toe to toe with the guy, and virtually
that was arguably the best game of his career.
Right. So the moment's not too big. We know that he can make these plays. The question is, why on a random Sunday against Carolina was it so bad? And look, the numbers at the end of the day, his quarterback rating was over 100. He had a completion percentage, 14 of 18. I mean, he basically, every time he went back to throw, he found somebody. He throws 2 touchdowns. He runs for another one. He makes a big play here. So it's not, I don't think he's bad, but I think he can be significantly better.
Yeah, and when I said, you have these extremes with Jalen Hurts, we have one on this show who act like he's never played good football versus the ones who want to protect him at all costs. I think, it's a microcosm almost of society. But right now he's not playing good football. And that has to be identified to fix, I would think. And I assume everyone behind the scenes kind of knows that. Certainly everyone, far more than A.J. Brown, brought up after the game that the passing game isn't where it needs to be. And as you mentioned, you eliminate the running back, you eliminate the receivers, you eliminate the offensive line. Well, what's left? So to me, it's pretty obvious. But the more difficult part is fixing it. Do you think, and this is difficult, they haven't lost a game since the bye week. But do you think they did the quarterback a disservice by scaling back the offense so dramatically? Because to me, he seems like a guy trying to not commit turnovers at all costs.
Yes and no. I mean, if they coach him up so much to be, to where he's afraid, I saw a bite this morning from from Matthew Stafford, who basically, you know, he didn't throw any interceptions. He hasn't thrown an interception in like 3 games. And, you know, he's basically saying, like, you know, you've got to be decisive and you've got to, you know, not be afraid to turn the ball over. But by not being afraid to turn the ball over means it doesn't mean you can't do anything else. And, you know, when I say Tecmo Bowl and people are like, look, they could run the same play all day long and not get stopped. You have A.J. Brown do a slant. You've got Smith do a post, and you've got a guy running the seam. Those guys are going to get open. Now, eventually the other team might start taking them away, but until they figure it out, you've got 2 of the best receivers on the same team in the league. Make them figure it out. Make them stop you. You don't have to overcomplicate what the offense is. So I think they get to a point where, have they coached him to be fearful of turning the ball over so much? I don't know. Somebody said to me, can he not see over the line? You know, is that a problem? He's got a guy 6'7" in the middle of the line. He's got Mailata's a pretty big dude on the outside. Can he not see that slant coming in front of him? I mean, because these guys are I mean, it's amazing if he can't see that those guys are open. And these are the most basic, simple of throws. You would think the coach would say, you know, I tell the story often where Barrett Brooks would say John Gruden was the coordinator, and John Gruden would tell the quarterback, 1, 2, 3, throw it to him. He's going to be open, and if he's not open, it's my fault. And that was Bobby Hoying. And Bobby Hoying looked like he was the savior at quarterback for this team. And then John Gruden left, and Dana Bible came, and he didn't tell him where to throw the ball. And guess what? Bobby Hoying couldn't play. So I don't know if all these different coordinators have told him so many different things that he's just completely confused and lost at what he's supposed to do and what he's not supposed to do. But if you're Kellen Moore, 1, 2, 3, the guy's right there. I promise you he's going to be open every time. This seems like it's a pretty simple way to get him back on track.
Mike, do you make anything of the drama element of what happened this week with the commentary? Like, John's more of the belief it's not really there's nothing they need to work out in the locker room. This is fix the passing game and everything else fixes itself.
Yeah.
I think there could be something going on in there that might be stemmed from the passing game, but it might, you know, not everybody's on the same page. What did you make of the comments from AJ, Brandon Graham, and that stuff?
Well, I think the AJ stuff was pretty normal. Like, what's wrong? Passing. I think he got asked a question. He answered it. He wanted to kind of move on from it as fast as he could. I think by the time we got to Wednesday or Thursday, if that was everything, it's a normal thing that happens in there. We'd be speculating, oh, do they not get it? And then they play the game, and it's like, okay, Brandon Graham just took a blowtorch to the thing. And
he opened the Pandora's box.
Yeah.
Well, and it's because it's Brandon Graham. You know, Brandon Graham, I always say he's a terrible guy to have on as a talk show host because everything is too positive. Everything is, we're blessed to get a chance to play. We're going to give it our all. Everything's great. He never has a negative thing to say. So when Brandon Graham shows concern about what he heard, that's when I said, whoa, Brandon Graham is the nicest guy in the world. He doesn't give you anything except for positivity. So he absolutely blew this thing up. And then the disaster that ensued afterwards, texting every media member to try to fix it, then calling the radio station again the next day. Get out from it. Just back off and say, I'm getting out of this thing. So I think the Brandon Graham element really added to this whole mess. Because then, you know, you've got T.O. getting involved. I mean, Jesus, Mary and Joseph, T.O. Now,
still going after 20 years, that feud.
Yeah. T.O. actually did say, listen, I didn't like Donovan at all. And yet he threw me the ball. Like, he's not an idiot. We don't have to like each other. My biggest game ever was in the Super Bowl. We weren't talking at all. And he throws me the ball. He's not dumb enough. I hope Jalen Hurts isn't dumb enough to think that this little possible rift is a reason not to throw him the ball. Because we have heard stories the opposite, where Randall Cunningham wouldn't throw Keith Byers the ball to get his record because he wouldn't stop playing video games, like ridiculous stuff like that. You know, so every individual person's different. These rifts happen all the time. And quite frankly, I can't. I don't think that these guys don't like each other or there's something going on there. I think after the game, because if you watch that video, he's asked the question. He says passing, and then he's almost got a smirk on his face. Like he almost can't contain himself. He's like, oh, crap. I know that he's going to bust my stones now. So I don't think that the inner locker room stuff, that happens all the time, every team all season long. It just doesn't get out, and that's where the Brandon Graham element comes in. LaShawn McCoy talked about this on his show, and he also said, look, Brandon, I love you, man, but you didn't need to be a part of this thing. That's added to, I think, this whole thing.
Yeah, and it was so, and Brandon made a mistake. He knows it, obviously, as you pointed out. And if he didn't say what he said, it wouldn't even be an issue. I'm with you. For the
I think if Brandon didn't say what he said, probably by now it may have even been, because Kellen Moore didn't give much yesterday. I know you guys tried.
He doesn't
give much, and he's very calculated and prepared.
That dude is politician trained, isn't he? Holy
yeah, he's really good at giving you nothing. So I think with him giving you nothing, now what's Nick talking today?
Yeah, Nick's talking today, but he already gave his hand on WIP because he had to go on to talk.
He did, but I'm sure he'll get asked about it. The problem that with these, now is today a Zoom or in person?
In person.
Okay, because the Monday afterwards is useless because you guys are on Zoom, so you can't get anything there. He's sitting on a Zoom screen, so you can't really get the real back and forth and like tense feeling of having to answer these questions.
All the middle of the week stuff, though, Mike. It's all PR trained for the Eagles in the middle of the week. That's why after the game, I love after the game because you get people in their natural emotional state and you can talk to them about it. And typically you get some answers that give you something. And then they come out, during the week and they're all trained by the media. Oh, you're going to get this, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. And this is what
that's why the Monday one on the Zoom, it has become, because it's like, okay, now he has a chip, but if they're in the room, you can at least try to have some back and forth. And so, I've never been on one of those Zooms, but I've been on Zooms. I've been on this call here. It's sometimes hard to kind of, figure out when can you hear me if we're kind of going at the same time? That's hard. So the Monday ones make it difficult to try. Today being in person, he'll probably get some follow-ups. He was a little terse on the, I guess it was a Jeff McClain question, although he's generally terse with Jeff McClain, it seems like. But he tried to ask something where Sirianni just kind of gave him a one-word quickie. McClain followed up with something, and he just wasn't having it. So I'm sure he'll get a little round of it again today. And then this would probably be the end of it because he'd probably shoot it down. He'd be well-trained by now, and then the week would go on. But the Graham stuff has given it life up to this point.
Well, I think real quick, I think the AJ comment, right? It's open for interpretation where it's like, is it a small problem? Is he talking about Jalen Hurts? And then BG comes and you have your wildest fears about what AJ said with the relationship with the quarterback. Is he talking about Jalen? And BG just poured gasoline on that fire and said, anything you were thinking about that comment that was negative, yep, I just confirmed that it's true inside the locker room. And I think that's where BG probably.
What do you guys make of Aaron Rodgers basically saying he thinks that Brown did it on purpose to light a fire under Hurts to get
I saw that.
I did see that. I would almost want to give AJ credit, but I don't think that's the case. I don't think he's playing 3D chess. I think like what's amazing to me is that so many people in that locker room said the same thing, but they said it in a more contextual fashion. Basically, the passing game's got to get better. Everybody from Jordan Mailata to Lane Johnson to Devontae Smith to Jalen Hurts to Nick Sirianni. Everybody said the same thing, but because of what Brandon said, AJ became the focus, and it's about personal relationships other than the actual problem, which is how bad the passing game has been. In some ways, and that's what I said to Zander at the start of the show, Mike, I think this will force them to address the issue. The NFL's weird. I tell this story all the time. JAKIB Sports is the one who told me. You don't teach much during the regular season. It's all about, and you've heard Nick Sirianni say it all the time, it's all about the next opponent. Everything this week is Pittsburgh, 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 Pittsburgh. Certainly amongst the players. Coaches have to have a little bit of a wider view, but certainly amongst the players. The off season that bleeds into training camp a little bit is for teaching. Then you're in evaluation the rest of training camp, and then you're into game prep. There's not a lot of teaching going on in the regular season. So this is what it is. This is the passing offense. And if it is, how freaking disappointed are you in the politician, Kellen Moore?
Am I disappointed in Moore or am I disappointed in his student? I mean, I feel like Moore is getting guys open. Now, you would say, well, it's up to him to get it out of Hurts.
To me, the biggest part is teach.
Yeah.
Not scheme.
Sometimes you can teach, and if the kid doesn't want to be taught, or is incapable. I don't think he's incapable, but I'll tell you, I joked that Tua should be the MVP of the league. They're the worst team you ever saw in your life when he doesn't play. And when he plays, they're like, they probably made the playoffs. But I'm thinking the other day, I said, man, if you had a kid just like Tua, not the best player in the world, not the worst, just somewhere kind of in the middle, they're going up and down the field. He makes every throw. I mean, he just bang right there. 1, 2, 3, beep, right there. He throws it to the spot he needs to throw it to every single time. Almost every quarterback in the league now you're watching with the same. Bryce Young, I mean, he caught the snap, 1, 2, 3, he threw it. He didn't think. He was told that's where to throw the ball. Is Jalen defiant? I mean, we've all heard about how coachable he is. He's a coach's kid. And now it seems like it's almost like his whole life has been to earn this contract and get the respect he deserves. And he finally got it. And now he says, I got it. Screw all you guys. I'm doing what I want. It's a bizarre situation because he can do it. We've seen him do it. The offense has guys open. I'm watching Jason Avant doing a great breakdown. He said he only picked like 4 plays. He said I could get 14 plays of guys wide open on the field, and he just won't throw the ball. And it's perplexing because, I have an 85-inch screen, and you can see the whole damn field. And there's 3 guys open on every play, and he just held the ball all day. Is this a 1-week thing? I think he's done it in games past, not perpetual for full games. This seemed to be the whole day, and yet he was 14 of 18. That's pretty wild.
Aren't they kind of taken away too? Aren't they kind of regressing what they're asking him to do in the passing game week by week? I mean, the first 4 weeks of the year they were passing most, and they've taken it back. Now we're almost back to the RPO, and it's like I don't hate it because Jalen was successful in it, but is that Kellen Moore's fault? I have a hard time believing that's Kellen Moore's fault.
I hate it, but that's me.
Yeah, that's but again, it's like Kellen Moore's. He's scheming guys open. They're open.
That's what I mean. That's why I have a hard time. I mean, listen, I'm not happy with what Kellen Moore's been in the passing game, but I have a hard time sitting here and saying it's all on him.
No, I look, if John, if you're saying, look, it's up to him to get Jalen to make these reads and make these throws, okay, but he's getting guys open for Jalen. They're there for him. Now I guess the next part is, hey, Jalen, I got you 3 guys open. Pick one. Just throw it. And if it's my fault, like I guess you got to get to the point where you've turned the ball over, you heard about it so much, and now you have to convince him that if he does make the mistake, that it's not his fault, it's my fault.
Well, I think people get caught up in scheme, and I'm with you. I mean, there's clips all over the place. Acho did a great clip where he showed about 6 plays where.
Yep. Well, you said Acho. Avant said he had 4. He could go to 4. He had 10 more. I saw the Acho stuff as well. A lot of people had things, and you're like, holy mackerel, this was egregious.
Yeah. So, all right, I'm going to bring up Kevin O'Connell for this reason. Greg Olson was the one who said this week, he's the guy now. He's the guy in the NFL for the quarterback whisperer. Daniel Jones went there to resuscitate his career on the practice squad. He's turning Sam Darnold into a freaking all-pro. It's not about the scheme. Now, they have tremendous talent there with Jefferson and Addison and Hawkinson. So they have similar talent, skill position talent to the Eagles. So they have top-tier talent as well. But my God, you watch Sam Darnold play. Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
Sam Darnold.
Yeah, which is funny. So Sam Darnold's a free agent. They haven't signed him yet. Does another team say, we'll take him because he's so good, or we're not interested because we don't have Kevin O'Connell? So it goes to the question, what's more important, the talent of the player or the guy who's trying to get the talent out of the player?
I always say player first.
Because if you're sending Sam Darnold to the Raiders or you're sending Sam Darnold to Cleveland, Cleveland might be a spot for him with Stefanski's, I guess. Although
I'm not talking about the player. I'm just talking about the scheme, because he schemes people open, no doubt about it. But my point is, he's teaching these guys. He's teaching these guys where to get the football and protect. It might even go back to Josh Dobbs, where he's winning with Josh Dobbs in a week.
Yeah, I think they're going to keep Sam Darnold. They got to extend. I think they're going to extend him.
I don't think they are, but that's a different conversation. But my point
is, they don't need to extend Sam Darnold because they feel that O'Connell can get the same from a guy like McCarthy.
Yeah, and they want to go, which, by the way, they're probably stupid, because if you find somebody, if you luck into somebody,
you don't roll the dice to say, you drafted a guy in the first.
Well, we've gone down to a tangent. You're basically saying, well, I can make J.J. McCarthy into Sam Darnold. You already got Sam Darnold.
Yeah. Right. Well, you drafted the guy in the first round. You can't waste it now.
And it's cheaper. That's why, because Sam's going to make a lot of money this offseason. But that's the big thing. It's
this all goes down the rabbit hole of, has Jalen just had so many voices in his head? And keep in mind, Kellen wasn't here before. So he's new to this whole situation. And he might be saying, I said this yesterday on my show, this guy worked with Justin Herbert last year. He can call any
job. He regressed, by the way.
Still, you can call any play you want with Justin Herbert because you know he can do it. So he's saying, I worked with Justin Herbert last year. This play worked every time. I can't call that play anymore. Why? Well, because this guy can't do it. So he's worked with Dak Prescott. I know everybody in this chat is probably going to say Dak sucks. Well, Kellen Moore's probably thinking, I can run this play with Dak Prescott.
Dak Prescott's the reason Kellen Moore keeps getting jobs.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, and keep in mind, we think Dak Prescott isn't whatever great because he hasn't won the big playoff games. But when he had Kellen Moore running that offense, they were 12 and they were 13
number one offense in the NFL twice.
Right. So he's saying, I ran this offense with Dak Prescott, no problems. Now I'm running this offense with a guy that people think is better than Dak Prescott, and we're having issues. These plays, Dallas runs, CeeDee Lamb catches the ball, easy, slant, takes off. I know this is more run-oriented, but is it more run-oriented? And this is where, are they so run-oriented because Saquon Barkley's having a historic season or because they have to be?
Mike, let me ask you this. This has been a topic all year long as we've watched this team and the way they've developed. We just talked about how they started the season differently than what they started doing after the bye week. And we've wondered here on the show, we've talked to you about it many times. Can they win with their setup, right? Running the ball, great defense, not being prolific. Does this change your opinion on that after what you saw versus the Panthers?
No. Can they win? Yes, but they have to be almost flawless. I mean, they have a good enough defense to keep them in the game most of the time. But I say before, their defense is going to have to win them a game in the playoffs. You can't win with offense 4 weeks in a row. So their defense is going to have to be good enough to win them a game. They'll probably be able to run and win a close playoff game. You're playing that number 7 seed, and it might be a battle. It might be the Commanders. Right now, it could be the Rams, who are, right. All those NFC West teams are in for that wild card spot outside of Seattle. They're all like a game behind Washington or 2 games behind Washington. So every team that's at 7 is a team that can beat you, but you can probably just, run the ball, play defense, make it like a 20-17 type of game, and then move on. One of the 4 games, you're going to have to be able to do something other than just turn around and hand the ball off all game long. So you could probably advance to a Super Bowl or get to an NFC championship game, but to win the ultimate prize, we've seen it many times where the team that gets to the Super Bowl, they throw, and then they get to the Super Bowl and they have to run, and they win the game in a different manner, or vice versa. So you have to be able to at least be able to do it once in a while. And right now, whenever the Eagles, we've always said, is there the game where they're down 2 scores and they have to throw themselves back? Baltimore, they were down 9-0. They kind of got back in that game, but it was early enough where they didn't have to abandon the run. If they're down 14-0, are they going to keep running in the first, second quarter, all that stuff? So, yeah, they can do it, but your margin of error is so small in that realm.
At Mike Gill Show, make sure you follow Mike on the X platform. Subscribe to his YouTube channel as well at Mike Gill Show there. 97.3, the Sports Bash locally in South Jersey. Listen to him every day, 2 to 6. Boy, we didn't talk about anything other than you got some defense in there. I'm proud of you. We didn't talk about anything about the quarterback. So I'm going to talk to you about the other big problem. And this is bigger. I'll end it there. Jake Elliott. 0 for 5 from 50 yards, 15 of 17 from 21 to 23. This guy's going off the rails, Mike. And this is my problem with that. The Eagles played differently. They went away from their DNA to protect Jake Elliott and lost their aggression and punted. And by the way, Braden Mann executed a Bonte, perfect execution on the punt. And they were still a Xavier Leggett drop away from being behind with 45 seconds left.
Yeah.
Is that sustainable? Or do you have to start thinking about, look, if this guy keeps struggling, you've seen all these injured kickers. Spencer Schrader, when he came in for Harrison Butker, he did a good job. Parker Romo came in. He did a good job. Do you have to start thinking about making a change?
Yeah, I think it's a good question that they're not going to make a change. I mean, Tucker's having problems. They're not making a change. You just got to kind of ride it. But if it's affecting your decision-making, you're thinking, do you not want to make the harder decision to let the guy go? Or do you want the decisions to now affect what you have to do game day? And I think you're seeing that where they would kick a 53-yard field goal all the time, every time.
They wouldn't even think about it. Nick was trying to bend over backward. He would a normal Jacob. He trots him on the field. You send Carolina back to Charlotte. That's it. Game over.
Does an alternative improve that confidence, though? That's the question.
It's weird. Did they change the footballs or something? Because this is an epidemic all over. I mean, guys are missing extra points. Guys are just we were laughing early in the year. It felt like, man, these kickers are just getting better and better. They're kicking 58-yarders and 60-yarders like it's no problem. Now these guys are missing extra points, missing 50-yard. Now 50-yarders were like, we took such for granted that making a 50-yarder was like no problem. Well, here you got one of the best kickers in the league. He can't make one. Tucker's one of the best kickers of all time. He can't make one. And I think once that's such a between the ears position that if you miss 1, 2, 3, now you're constantly thinking about it. So, yeah, I definitely think that whole game, I heard somebody, criticizing Sirianni with the way that, he ended up not taking the field goal and how he handled that whole moment. But he handled that moment knowing that he couldn't trust his kicker. And if that's a problem in a playoff game, if you can't trust the kicker to make that kick in a playoff game, that's another reason why you're in big trouble.
We'll see how it all plays out. Mike Gill, thanks for joining the show today, man. Excellent as always. Make sure you guys follow Mike at Mike Gill Show and go check out his YouTube channel. Just type in Mike Gill Show and he'll come up 2 to 6 Monday through Friday. Mike, thanks for joining, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
All right. See you guys.
Thanks, bud.
Appreciate Mike Gill joining us here on Birds 365. Great stuff from Mike. As always, interesting discussion, though, Johnny Mac. I know we got stuck on the one topic, but it is the topic right now on this football team. A lot of questions in the air for an 11-2 team, and we will see how they bounce back. We got a couple super chats we'll get to before we get out of here. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. Let's get to James Carver. He drops him a $20. James, big thanks, bro. That's what James says. That's what Shady said after calling AJ and said the passing comment has grown into a personal problem and discussion when it was only about passing to all. And AJ was upset when the plays were designed for him and AJ was open. Same for Smitty. And there was a clip floating around, John. I'm not sure if you saw the clip of AJ and Smitty on the bench. And they were talking after they came off the field, and Jalen was kind of sitting on the other side of the bench. And it almost, you don't know exactly what they said, but it almost looked like AJ was like, hey, I was open. Were you open? Yeah, I was open. And neither of them got the ball. I'm just speculating. It was an interesting thing that went. But your response to what James Carter
I didn't see the clip, but yeah, I mean, that's I people keep using the term upset. I use the term frustrated because I think they were both frustrated. And there was a right to be frustrated because they were open. And we saw that with the clips and the all 22 cut-ups, and everybody showing it from Orlovsky to Odd Show to Jason Abant to everybody else who played the game and said, look, this is open in the NFL. Bang. If the ball comes out on time. And I've been talking about it since week 1 in Green Bay with the turnovers. All those turnovers early were late throws, basically. Ball's not coming out on time. It's been a problem all season. Why? I wish I could tell you. I mean, Mike went to, guys are open, so that should take some of the mantle off Kellen Moore. I agree with that from a scheme perspective. I'm speaking
so much on his plate, John, pre-snap. Remember that was a big story early in the year.
Maybe that's added to it. There's so many different avenues you can go through. Maybe, I always bring up Dante Culpepper back in the day because he had just a phenomenal season. Offensive Player of the Year season, would have been an MVP, but the team wasn't good enough. More of a 10-win type team. I forget 9-10-win type team. So had to settle for the Offensive Player of the Year award. What historic season at the time from a production standpoint, both passing and running. He was one of the first real dual threat dominant quarterbacks before his knee injury. And I remember him coming back the next year. It's like one of those where you were talking to me on the post game show and you said, because I was talking to Jordan when AJ was talking, and you told me his answer and passing, and I said, oof. Well, that's the same thing I had with Dante back in the day. He said, the game has slowed down for me. And I said, oof, here it comes. And he did not have a good season. He got hurt very early in the next season, but the first 4 games or so before he got hurt, he was not playing well, remotely coming off the great season. I'm not saying that's happened to Jalen Hurts, but the minute you think you have this thing solved, they will remind you of where you are. And by they, I mean NFL defenses. And if you're not constantly growing and constantly evolving and constantly getting better and constantly standing still, you're going to regress. You're not going to stand still. And I think that's what's happening with Jalen Hurts. He's regressing. Why? I focus when it comes to coaching. I focus more on the teaching than I do with the scheme, because anybody can go get Ben Johnson tape and copy plays. Can you teach the players to execute those plays? That to me is the more important part of coaching. Always has been. And Vic will say that defensively. You got to get the guys prepared.
Yeah.
Look,
Isn't there only so much you can do in that though? Like,
well, look at what
Big
Fangio,
the progression, where to go, but he can't pull the trigger for him.
well, Vic Fangio is a perfect example in this town because they've been playing the defense for 4 years now. Look at the difference when he's teaching it versus some other people teaching it. No, you can't force people to do it, but good teachers find ways to reach people.
Good stuff there. James Carver, thanks for the super chat, brother. I appreciate that. Lauren Crampsey checks in. Lauren, thank you so much for the support. Morning, folks. They'll fix it. And Philly media is the GOAT. No cap. Look at that. She likes Philly media. Is that a real comment? Is that?
I don't think that's a real comment. I'm just going. Yeah, I gotta believe they'll fix it.
Johnny Mack's the GOAT. I'll correct it.
I don't know.
How about that?
You never know if people are being sarcastic without the.
No, I think Lauren's genuine.
Most people don't like the Philly media. I don't like that they lump us all into one.
I know, it's a pain in the balls.
Yeah. I mean, obviously I have different opinions than other people. So I don't know why, I got no problem if you want to take a shot at me for my own opinion. I got a problem getting lumped in with other people who say things that I may not agree with. And for whatever reason, it's not just Philadelphia. I mean, that happens all over. And that happens in much bigger stories and themes and politics and society as a whole than sports, which at the end of the day doesn't matter. But yeah, I'm amazed how many people can't digest that the media is not one group.
Good stuff, Lauren. Thank you for the support, Lauren. We appreciate that. She followed up too here and said, good point, J-Mac. Yeah, I think she's being genuine. Good point, J-Mac. Shanahan has had every mid quarterback in the league in the Super Bowl. It's true. Brian Garner.
Well, and by the way, Kyle Shanahan, one of the reasons I was high on Sam Darnold this year is because he spent a year with Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah.
Before
what's going to happen with Kyle this year? You think they're going to blow it up?
You never know, but I don't think so. I think they know what kind of coach he is. But I would have a discussion with Kyle Shanahan and say, dude, can you scale back on the game planning, the play calling a little bit and manage the game a little bit better as the head coach? Be a head coach is what I'm saying. Don't be a supercharged offensive coordinator.
Right. Lauren did follow. Oh my God, it's a real comment. Come on now, Mac. Appreciate that, Lauren. Good stuff there. Brian
well,
Garner,
I'm not used to it. I appreciate it. I'm not used to it.
Brian Garner checks in. He says the QB deserves criticism. The QB is a winner and he's missing reads. Both things are true. They need to find a way to fix it, period. Well stated, Brian.
Yeah, that is well stated. I might steal that, Brian. That is well stated.
If Johnny Mac's stealing something from you, you had a good comment. Good comment there, Brian. James Carver said, we got audio. Love y'all. Appreciate that. James, this is a good take here on the kicker stuff because I think the kicker conversation is an interesting one right now. James Carver, appreciate you, James. He says, J-Mac, could it be good for Jake and the Eagles if Lions do have the number 1 seed because he's likely to kick better in the dome and Jake likely to be needed the most versus the Lions? Interesting take there.
I mean, I think everybody kicks better in the dome, so I think that's better for everybody. Detroit's kickers having a great freaking year.
Yeah, who they have? Bates? Is that their kicker?
Jake Bates, who's won a couple games for them. I think he's 20 of 21 or something. He's missed one field goal, somewhere in that range. So he's having a great game. So I'm not sure it's going to be an advantage, but every kicker is better in the dome. Every single one of them. So I would agree with that. Certainly than here late and projected to be in January. That would be, you got to cross your fingers to even get a mediocre kicking day in Philadelphia in January.
Where are you on Jake Elliott? Because I asked you after the game on the post-game show, and it's a little heat of the moment, and I said, John, they're not going to think about replacing him, and you kind of quickly shot it down, and I agreed. I'm like, I don't think they're actually going to, but it does seem like it's gotten to this point. And then you asked Mike Gill that, and I'm like, has your thought process?
No, that my thought process hasn't changed from the fact that they're not going to replace him. But I think, it's a worthy question to ask of others.
Right, because you're changing what you're doing in game because of it.
Yeah, and I wrote about that at SI after the game. I mean, that to me is the bigger thing than the missed kicks, is that they changed their philosophy because of those struggles in the final moments. And it worked out, but it only worked out because Xavier Leggett dropped the football. That's the only reason it worked out. Now, typically, as I said, now Nick was bending over backwards Monday saying, oh, the wind was worse than you thought and blah, blah, this and that. And I had to take that. That's bullshit. He lost confidence in the kicker. Again, does anybody believe from 21 to 23, when this guy went 15 of 17 from 50 plus, was the best kicker in the league from long range, he trots him out on the field, extends it to 9 points, game over. That's what he doesn't even think about it. And here, they're trying to draw him off sides first. When they didn't draw him, they take the delay to make it better for Braden. They're changing their whole philosophy because of the struggles of the kicker. Right. That's not a good thing.
Add into the fact that if he made the kick, it would have effectively ended the game. I mean, you go away from that decision.
Well, that's what I'm saying. The game's over if he makes the kick, and that's a decision he wouldn't even have thought over if Jake Elliott was kicking like Jake Elliott. And now he's doing all these different things just to make up for the fact that he has no confidence in the kicker right now.
Josh Herman checks in, our latest jersey winner. Josh, the update is that you're getting your jersey soon. These Saquon jerseys, John, are all delayed as he breaks the record for Shady. So our guy in the UK got his like a week and a half ago. Now Josh is up next. I got the email a couple of days ago that it's all on its way. So I emailed him. And then we got two more. Got Terry Hayes is getting his jersey.
1 yard away from another one.
Shoot, what's the guy's name? Pile Driver, who won the Brandon Graham jersey. Josh Herman says, Big Z, I listen to you guys on my way from work. Way better than the mainstream outlets. Great stuff. Josh, we appreciate that, man. Thank you for tuning in every day. It means a lot to us. We appreciate that very much. Brian Pumper says, J-Mac, keep cooking their false prophets. These Jalenites need to touch grass.
Yeah, Brian's our resident Jalen hater. I don't go as far as Brian. Look, he's not playing well right now in the passing game. Now, he's still doing a bunch of other stuff. That's why I liked the other Brian's comment.
Garner, Brian Garner.
He's a winner. He does off schedule. Even in that game, I brought it up after the game. You had the 35-yard run on third down. You had a 15-yard run on third down. You had extending the play to get Devontae Smith for a big 27-yard gain. Even when he missed AJ for an easy touchdown, he was able to readjust and get Devontae Smith for a touchdown. He's still able to make plays. Those two things are not mutually exclusive. But the passing game's got to get better. I don't know why anybody can debate that fact. And I think fewer and fewer people are debating. People are leaving that island and understands, all right, this has to get better. There's still some, though, holding out. Acting like it's not a big deal. Look, can you beat the Detroit Lions throwing for 108 yards? I guess, but I'd love to see it.
No.
I'd love to see it.
You can't beat the Detroit Lions throwing for 108 yards. Stop. No way. They're the best offense in football. They're a top 3 passing offense and the number 2 running offense. If you were doing the bullshit ESPN predictive analytics, I'd say you're 95% losing the game at least. But there's always that 5%. But that's why we talk about margin of error all the time. You're trying to increase it, not getting it to 95%, which is, to win a game like that against Detroit, or not even Detroit, or Green Bay, or Minnesota, you'd have to get a defensive touchdown and maybe a punt return touch. Something crazy would have to happen. Yeah, or just an insane defensive performance where they don't give up many points.
Yeah, so, I don't know. And we haven't even talked about the defense. You kind of saw with Adam Thielen a little bit of what, Browns like that, St. Brown's like that.
Yes, he is.
Jefferson's like that. Great route runners who can make some plays that maybe other teams are not going to make.
Yeah, they find the zones in the field better than others and at the right times. I mean, and you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. We got a couple more super chats we'll get to here, and then we got BLG coming up at 9:20. So looking forward to talking to Brandon Lee Gowton, see what his take is on everything happening in Eagle Land right now. Here we go. Another one from Brian Pumper. Oh no, I missed this one other. He says he can't read. This guy can't read, which is the famous quote from the Bucs playoff game. That's becoming a bigger thing again. Brian Pumper says, I'll tell you what happened to Jake. You give a damn kicker a captain's patch, expectations higher for a leader. I don't know, Brian, because you got to give a special teams guy a captain patch every year.
Yeah, he's been a captain. This is not the first time he's been a captain. He was a captain last year when he was a second-team All-Pro.
I'll tell you what, Mike brought up a good point. I mean, you got who were the two best kickers in the league last year? Probably Jake Elliott and Justin Tucker, right?
I think Aubrey was the All-Pro.
Was up there. So there was a couple, but I mean, Elliott and
yeah, I mean, Tucker's the best kicker of all time, though. But I think
struggling this year. It is odd what's happened to the kickers.
Well, a lot of kickers are having. I just brought up Jake Bates. He's having a great year. A lot of kickers are having great years.
Yeah. There is a lot having bad years, though. I turn on a bunch of games and they're like, oh, there you go. Another.
Well, Michael Clay, we talked to Michael Clay. He said when the weather turns, it'll change. And he was right. But there's still overall, I would say it's been a good year for kickers. I mean, the number of 50-plus yard is unbelievable compared to what it used to be. So overall, the large sample size, I would say it's a up year for kickers. Pretty significantly up year.
Let's hope Jake Elliott can get there as well. Jack Dwight checks in. Jack, appreciate it. I have an issue with Eagles media with softball questions at the pressers. It wasn't always like this. Been following since Jurgensen was the quarterback. Ooh, a shot at the media, John. What do you have to say about that?
Well, there we go. Media again. I would disagree. I think people misconstrue professionalism with, like we're not going to go there. And like I say, ask Nick why Jalen sucks or something.
Yeah,
right. Those are people that don't understand the job, the profession. There's got to be a level of decorum. So that part.
Can it though, like on a real note from a reporter, can it be a hard line to walk when you're trying to get to the truth or get the answer to your question while also maintaining that professionalism, especially if the question might be tough?
No, it's not. It's not hard to maintain your professionalism. It's hard to get information sometimes because, one of the things, I always try to do with Nick, because if you ask Nick about a specific player, you're going to get the bullshit. So I try to ask more thematic questions to try to get information. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes he goes off on a great soliloquy. He's kind of shut down a little bit this year. But I would say this to Jack. I mean, we got the reputation of being the toughest media in the country that hasn't wavered. And people hate us in the building because they think we're too tough. So I would lean on that more than we ask softballs, because I don't think Nick Sirianni thinks we ask softballs. I'll tell you that.
There's some in there. There's some in there that are softballs. No, Steve.
Well, there's some and always. I mean, some.
Yeah, I get it.
You're not going in there with the idea, oh, I'm going to get the head coach. I mean, your job is to gather information of what's going on with the team,
right?
And to be honest, most of that happens outside of press conference, 90+% of it. The more important stuff. But yeah, I mean, you're trying to gather. You're not trying to play gotcha. You're trying to gather information. So yeah, I don't know, but most people think we're pretty tough, evidently. So I'll stand on that.
Nosty Beats checks in and says, if you think about it, Jalen's ability to run and throw off schedule has delayed/limited his development as an actual QB. Interesting theory there. I think it's maybe some merit to it. John, what say you?
Yeah, I mean, that's always that tightrope. It is. It's a difficult tightrope because, you can't be successful. You can't be consistent. And I think you see that with the Eagles offense. You can't be consistent with off schedule stuff. To be consistent, you have to run on schedule effectively. And the Eagles are very effective off schedule, and they're not very effective on schedule. And what you see is a lack of consistency. But then at the end of the game, you say, well, he made this 35-yard run. He broke the back of the game. I talk about it all the time. I use the term relentless because he's playing poorly on schedule. And then you're as a defense, you might even be puffing out your chest. And all of a sudden, instead of getting off the field, he's gouging you for 35 yards. He's a very unique player. But the on-schedule stuff is not good right now.
Got to take the good with the bad. I mean, I think you bring up a good point. He's a unique player, but at some point, what's more important? Is the on-schedule deficiencies more overweigh or over?
In a big spot, what do you need?
Right.
Do you need a 7-yard slant, or you need somebody pulling a horseshoe out of their hind quarters?
Yeah, sometimes it is the latter, and you need the guy pulling the horseshoe out. Jalen's been proven to do that at times, but we'll see if we can get there with the on schedule being as bad as it is. Lauren Cramsey again. Lauren, thanks for your support today. We appreciate that, and I think you were also supporting yesterday. Yesterday was a little bit of a wash show. We were on a different platform, it was a nightmare. As the ex-head of media for a top global soccer team. Wow, look at that. There you go, Lauren. Trust me when I tell you the culture of the Philly media is as tough as it comes. The fastballs are in the nuance of the softballs. Hashtag media stand. So, Lauren, a big media girl. I like it, Lauren.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I said. Lauren's right about there's certain things you get to learn certain coaches. Like with Bick, we just ask him questions.
Right, because you're going to get the truth.
Yeah.
Nick, you gotta ask it a certain way to see if you can prod something out of them.
Yeah. So once you learn the people you try to at least the ones who know what they're doing, try to go in different directions. Like you will never hear me any longer ask Nick Sirianni an injury question. It's a complete waste of time.
It's a waste of your time. Yep.
It's a complete waste of time. So I don't do it. It's, sometimes people feel they have to get him on the record about something. He's going to say the same thing every single time. It's not even worth it. Do it off platform, do it off camera. It'll give you the same bullshit. So you have to learn the coaches, and as I said, Vic is so straightforward. We just lob questions at him, and he'll answer the question. Not a lot of coaches like that anymore. So with most, you have to get them talking and things of that nature. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes yesterday I tried to get Kellen. He didn't understand the question. I was trying to basically say, ask him about the offensive struggles, how quickly they go off script, things of that nature. But Kellen's a politician, so it's difficult at times. But I think overall, I don't know. I don't think as a group we're all throwing softballs all the time.
Good stuff. One more super chat, then we'll get to Bree LG. Appreciate everybody in the chat today. Hit that like button for us. James Carver says, granted, Pat was talking about Tucker on his show, and he was a punter, but he said when kickers fall off, it's fairly quick. Any concern that's begun for Jake? I think that's a fair concern. By the way, he's talking about the Pat McAfee show there. Great show.
Yeah, I'm concerned about Jake Elliott. And more than Jake struggling, I think his struggles have changed the Eagles a little bit. And I think you saw that at the end of the game where, again, previous years that wouldn't even have been a decision for Nick Sirianni. And here he is trying to draw him off sides and trying to jump through hoops and then taking a delay game to pin him back and yada, yada, yada. And from 21 to 23 was trotting him out there, kick the field goal, been aggressive, probably win the game and send the Panthers back to Charlotte. That's a concern for me.
All right. Good stuff. Appreciate everybody in the chat. We're going to get to BLG now. Coming up next here on Birds 365. Look at this comment, John. I love this one. Amber says, Zander, in the past, I've been hard on John. He's growing on me. John, I apologize. Good stuff there, Amber. We appreciate that. And big shout out to Philly Mike in the chat. What's up, Philly Mike? Appreciate it, man. Love your channel. I appreciate you guys watching. Hit that like button. We'll be back in 3 minutes with BLG coming up next.
Ignite your nights with free live entertainment daily, only at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia's Center Bar. 7 days a week, enjoy some of the region's top party bands, performers, and DJs as they take the stage in the heart of the casino action. Great cocktails, live music, and lively moments. It's all happening at Center Bar at Live Casino and Hotel Philadelphia. Visit livecasinophilly.com for more details and the complete list of upcoming events. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
The following is a real testimonial from the father of a young injured victim.
I didn't think she was going to make it.
Major Perry's daughter was the victim of a horrific accident caused by someone else's negligence.
If you don't find the right counselor, law firm that you're looking for, you will get lost in the wilderness.
Badly injured? Call the Fritz and Bianculli Law Firm at 215-458-2222 and find out why they say, "We got this."
In our hometown, we all look out for each other. We step up to keep our communities going strong. And at Independence Blue Cross, we're here to keep you going strong as the #1 health insurer in the region. No IBX is always looking out for you.
We noticed that there was mold creeping into our basement about a year and a half ago, and wanted to make sure that we were getting rid of the problem permanently. We actually reached out to several different contractors to get it resolved, and actually 2 of them recommended DryTech to us as a long-term solution. Other than the noise factor, we wouldn't even know that there was work being done on the basement level. It's really been a clean process for us.
Score and save this football season on your car insurance. Before the next game, save up to 40% on your auto insurance policy. That's right, 40% savings. Call an Audible this season and contact the Del Val Insurance Group. They're an advocate for you, not an insurance company. That means they'll get you the right coverage and save you up to 40%. Call managing partners Fran or Jim of Del Val Insurance, 215-354-0122, or score and save at dvigi.com. dvigi.com.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to a Wednesday edition of Birds 365, moving into Week 15 of the NFL. Joined now by Lee Gowton at Brandon Gowton of Bleeding Green Nation. BLJ, welcome to the show, man. How you doing on this Wednesday morning?
Doing good. Slow news week. Not a lot to talk about. Yeah.
All right, I don't want to ruin it because I want to hear your thoughts. Where did you take this grenade lob by Brandon Graham, our buddy? Which way are you taking this, BLG?
I mean, I don't think he was speaking. I don't think he was entirely just making it up. You know what the sentiment was from that. I don't think it has to be that Jalen Hurts and AJ Brown hate each other and have never talked to each other and never want to look at each other. But I don't think it's as simple as it's nothing. It's completely coming out of thin air and a total fabrication.
To kind of piggyback off that point, because I agree with you. I'm one of those people who think it's silly when fans assume that 75 guys always get along, like, consistently. I mean, the next 75 people you meet, you're talking about a 53-man roster, 17-man practice squad. You got guys on injured reserve. Not everybody's going to get along. I think that part of it's natural at all times. To me, I think this could help the team from this perspective, BLG. The passing offense sucks. This has forced a microscope on that, and the fact that this coaching staff pretty much has to go in there this week and says, all right, this has to stop. This is probably not the week to do it against Pittsburgh's defense, but if you ask me today, over under 108 passing yards, I'm going to go over, even though against a much better defense, which points out how bad this passing offense has been over the past 2 weeks.
83 net passing yards against
unbelievable
the Carolina. It's just it's a joke of a number. Like, that's unacceptable when you have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL, when you have AJ Brown, when you have Devontae Smith, when we've seen Jalen Hurts play better before than this. Part of the frustration there isn't just like Jalen Hurts can't do this at all. We've seen it in the past. We've seen him certainly have more success than that. And I think that's, where the frustration comes from. And that's how I kind of feel about it. I'm not at a point where I think Jalen Hurts can play better than this. So that's why it's disappointing. If this is just who he is entirely, then it wouldn't be as frustrating. And I think, AJ probably kind of feels the same way. He knows Jalen can play better and get him the ball better than he did in that game than he has recently. And again, that's where the frustration is, because you're measured against expectation and you're measured against what you can do, and they're not doing it.
BLJ, if you had to put in order where you think the issue lies with the passing game, Jalen Hurts, Kellen Moore, Nick Sirianni, where is it for you? How do you rank those in order of who you're calling out for the passing game being so egregious?
I don't think it's literally 100% Jalen Hurts, but when we're talking about the guy making $250 million,
yeah,
and that's why you pay that guy all that money, is to have the quarterback kind of make up for shortcomings. You're not paying Kellen Moore, anything close to that kind.
That's a good point.
kind of money, or Nick Sirianni for that matter. It's not always that simple, but I just think, when you think about the top quarterbacks in the NFL currently and over the course of history, they can't just be like, well, Tom Brady didn't have a chance because the offensive coordinator was only okay. That's not what we're talking about here. When we're talking about the best of the best, and also it goes both ways. If Jalen Hurts was crushing it right now, everyone would be saying Jalen Hurts MVP, he's so great, he's so awesome. Wouldn't just be like, well, Kellen Moore is great and Jalen Hurts whatever. When things are going well, quarterback's going to get the credit, and when he's not, he should also be ripped for it. And I think, Hurts is a very big factor. And it's also I feel like the simplest fix, right? Even if there are going to be scheme issues and all that is so much more easily you can work with it if the quarterback's actually playing well.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, BLG. I thought about that. You bring up somebody like Brady. He essentially got Josh McDaniels multiple head coaching jobs. Peyton Manning, from his time in that 1 year in Denver, got Adam Gase multiple coaching jobs. Jalen Hurts should be getting Kellen Moore a head coaching job. That's not happening right now. We'll see how it goes. If they go win the Super Bowl, Jordan Mailata probably had the best description, and he said, I feel stupid talking about it, but it's shitty right now. So what Jordan said about the passing game, nobody had a problem with that because he's more contextual. He brings it up. And then the other end of the spectrum is they won 9 straight games. They're in the playoffs for a 4th consecutive season. They might clinch the NFC East this week, and if they don't, they're going to clinch it very soon. It's still a really good football team. And sometimes I think you get too hyper-focused during the regular season in that it's always about the next opponent. Nick talks about it all the time. Pittsburgh. Don't you think this coaching staff, that's fine for the players. they have to be a little bit more big picture and say, all right, it's great, but it's not good enough if we want to go ultimately where we want to go.
Yeah, I think, like Jordan's talking about that in part because of what we saw last year. Like, winning, you can say a win is a win, and there are probably some wins like that over the course of the season where it's really okay to say that. But, more often than not, like the good teams beat up on the bad teams, and the Eagles didn't do that. And I know the Panthers have been playing better. And I think that kind of excuse makes sense more so for the defense, which I thought, didn't have their best game of the season, but you can say Bryce Young is doing better. And I still think the defense challenged them in a lot of ways and didn't make it easy on them. The offense, you look at what the Panthers have been doing over these past 4 games or so, like they're not shutting down quarterbacks left and right. That's not been the case. And also that Panthers defense missing their top pass rusher in Jadeveon Clowney, missing J.C. Horn for a little bit, their top cornerback during that game. Like, again, there's just no good excuse for that production to be that bad. So anyway, I just think there's frustration across the board, and ideally you would like to be able to get something going here. And I think that's again part of the frustration of the Panthers game specifically is like that felt like an opportunity to take advantage and kind of, okay, let's get the passing game going. And instead they took a total step in the wrong direction, just the opposite. And now, again, like you said, John, you're going up against the Steelers this week. It doesn't feel like that's kind of the best week to get the passing game rejuvenated. Maybe it will, but that doesn't feel like the conditions are ripe for it this week like it was last week.
BLG is kind of this drama has kind of changed what I feel about this game this week. I don't want to say it's a must win, but is the pressure on in this week to come out here and perform? Because if they don't perform, potentially, do you think there's a chance that the locker room goes divided and we have another fallout coming?
I don't think so. It is like, it's their least important game just in terms of, out of conference and everything the rest of the way. I do get the question. Like, I don't think, I know it feels like maybe we're at a tipping point with things. I don't think that's quite the case. Obviously the vibes aren't improving with a loss. It really depends on how it happens. If they get blown out, sure. Yeah, then I am more concerned. And the passing game continues to look terrible in the kind of blowout loss like that, then yeah, that is a valid, point. But if we're talking about a close game here, which I think it will be, if the Eagles did lose, then no, I don't think it's going that way.
Yeah, and I'm with you. For some reason, I look at this Pittsburgh team and I say they're really good, and I think Mike Tomlin is a Hall of Fame coach, and we know he's been coaching forever, never had a losing season. They seem to always be a little bit better than what they should be, and that's kind of how I look about this Pittsburgh team. I don't see a 10-3 team, although maybe I do see a 10-3 defense. And it starts with TJ Watt, one of the true game wreckers. So I'm with you. This is not the week to get healthy in the passing game, but it's almost regressed to the point where they have to get better. They can't do, they almost, not literally, because 83 net yards can be 40 net yards, but bigger. It's hard to imagine they've had to have hit rock bottom over these past 2 weeks. That's kind of how I look at it. And this might be a good thing long-term to say, shit, all right, we got to fix this.
Mm-hmm.
This week, starting now, we got to fix this. We can't say, oh, Saquon's having a historic season. We have the number 1 defense. We can win that way. No, fix it. Fix it, fix it, fix it. Is that what you think the mentality is?
I think that's the optimistic spin. I think the negative could be that, much like last year, kind of just felt like, okay, the Eagles keep winning all these games. They haven't played their A game yet. Well, the question was well, what if this is their A game and they can't get to that next gear? And I think that's a similar kind of thing here. What if that passing game can't get to that next gear? Now, again, next year, maybe not, but they can be better than they were against the Panthers. Like I just said earlier,
because I'm saying, yeah, it is. And I'm saying, I don't want to turn them into 31-1, like the defense is gone, 31-50, and they've done it during the stretch. Just give me 225 and a big play. Just give me something in that range, and you're fine. You just can't do what you did against Baltimore and against Carolina. There's got to be something substantive to this passing game. And the second part is, and I mentioned this to Zander, BLG, a lot of people shit on Jahan Dotson. A lot of people shit on Howie Roseman for giving up a 3rd-round pick to get him, pick going back. But people focus on that 3rd-round pick. I don't know anything about Jahan Dotson. How could anybody say anything, evaluate Jahan Dotson? He's not involved. Nobody's involved except AJ.
And not
ironically, yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy how bad it's got.
I think one of the things that would be encouraging to see with the passing game, like other than just, actual volume and obvious success, but like even if maybe they're not getting to that, but we can look at some underlying things that baby steps trend in the right direction. It's the Jalen Hurts, average time to throw, which is something, I've been like beating that drum.
You've been saying that. I'm with you 100%. It was 2.78 during the Super Bowl season. And
we
that
talked
was
about this in the offseason.
Yeah.
You brought up this exact point in the offseason.
Because it's because, and I think Fran Duffy has, made this point well. It's not just that like holding the ball forever is necessarily bad in and of itself. Inherently, it's not always the worst thing. Like Lamar Jackson obviously is one of the highest average time to throws, but you have to have the trade-off of like, okay, why are you holding on to the ball? And if it's to make big plays down the field, you can live with that. But like Jalen Hurts over these past 3 weeks has what, like 2 passing attempts over 20 yards? Like that's just unacceptable. Like the big plays, they have to be coming there. And I think, we've all kind of crystallized on the fact that some of the limitations there it's Jalen and the way he's being coached are like, it's so turnover adverse. And obviously I think there's a lot of value to not turning the ball over, but like, I don't think anyone would be crushing Jalen Hurts if he's throwing an interception like occasionally as an arm punt, like where it's taking a deep shot down the field. Cause then like, okay, whatever. That's it's basically just like a punt. You can live with that kind of throw. And that's what made like, the decision to not throw it early on against the Panthers to AJ Brown there when he has a chance there. Like, I feel like you have to let that ball rip. If you get picked off, like everyone's obviously frustrated, but it's not to the level of like, a much shorter kind of interception. If you're going to take a chance, that's okay. I think people will be able to live with those. The coaching staff will be able to live with those more than, the other variety that maybe we were seeing on against these checkdowns, these kind of inexplicable
Well, the
decisions.
turnovers, I mentioned that earlier as well. You're right. So I'm going to play Jordan Mailata here. I feel kind of stupid because they won 9 straight games. But do you think that bye week scale back long term was a detriment? Because it seems to be a guy playing, like you just said, just don't turn it over and hesitating to pull the trigger to obvious open receivers.
Yeah, I think it's like people want to say, oh, you can't have it both ways. So you can't have like, oh, you're crushing Jalen Hurts for the turnovers early in the year, and then now he's being too safe. I don't agree. Like there's a happy medium, but between those two very extremes, I think these very extremes that we've seen this season, they have to find some better balance again. And it's so weird too. Like again, 2 passing attempts over the past 3 games. Jalen Hurts more than 20 yards. Like this is something in his DNA that he likes to do. Number 1, number 2, that he's good at doing. We just saw it in the Rams game. We had that big completion to AJ in that game. Probably maybe one of the more recent examples of them having success down the field. Like that's something he can do and should be doing more often. And again, like you can live with an interception or 2 if those are going to be the trade-off there, getting more often than not, AJ is going to win on those plays and they're going to have deep connections and it's going to be more fruitful for you in the long run there. So they have to get, I think that's one specific area in the passing game that even if like everything else isn't in sync and there's still other issues, which might just be the case, you have to at least have that deep passing element.
It's almost like a catch-22. The organization shifted to this run-first philosophy, and now they all want a better passing game. Interesting stuff there. BLG, what do you think Saquon Barkley's thinking of all this? I mean, he set the franchise record this week, breaking Shady McCoy. We haven't even talked about it. We haven't even talked about the freaking franchise record. But, he's obviously having a great season. We're winning 9 straight games. He's probably like, hey, man, everything is working right now. Obviously, he's having a historic season. Yet everybody else on his side of the ball is, not happy. Kind of puts him in a weird spot. What do you think Saquon Barkley thinks of all the discussion this week?
Yeah, it's good framing. Like it's the Eagles win their 9th straight game to advance to 11-2.
Right.
Saquon Barkley breaks a franchise record, and it's like a footnote. It's a footnote in the game.
Footnote, yep.
But I mean, I think Saquon's fine because he's getting his. I'm not trying to say that in like a selfish way, but I think like he's.
Yeah, I wonder
cool.
if it puts him in a weird predicament though, right? Where he's like, I'm getting mine, but clearly everybody else on the offense ain't happy, and that might be because I showed up.
Yeah, I don't think he's unaware of it. I would say that. Like, I don't think he's oblivious to it, but I think obviously he's just not in the same level or same mind space that AJ Brown is, and AJ Brown is rightfully upset. Like he is amazing. He is awesome. He is an elite level player. He should be getting more opportunities, and it is so clearly not something motivated by like money. Like he got his contract extension. He's not worried about getting his next contract. He wants to win the game, and they did win, but he knows that they should have won by more. And he knows that this passing offense can do more than they're doing. And he's probably worried that if they don't get it going, they're going to lose, especially against better opponents. So I think AJ has every reason to be frustrated like he is.
Yeah, I mean, if you ask Saquon who the best player on the, I'd say this and I got shat upon.
Yeah.
He'd say AJ Brown. And the most people in that locker room, and I'm glad Zach tweeted out the same thing. I've been saying it for weeks and weeks and weeks. The best pure football player on this team is AJ Brown. Most people in that locker room know it and realize it. So yeah, he should be upset. He should be frustrated. And it's got to be fixed. But this is sort of overwhelmed this team, BLG. And there's one other issue that I think is, and I was talking about it a little bit when you were in the green room, you might have heard it. The struggles of Jake Elliott. Well, and it's not the missed kicks for me. It's they're changing their philosophy now because they've lost confidence in the kicker. Unless you believe Nick's convoluted, the wind was worse and this and that. And bottom line is Jake Elliott from 21 to 23, they just trot him out there and try to win the game. And I think that's the way you got to play in the NFL, the modern NFL, be aggressive. The Eagles have always been at the top of the curve. Detroit may have passed them, but even so, they're one of those teams. And all of a sudden, they're turning into the 1975 Pittsburgh Steelers. Let's punt it back. And by the way, Braden Mann, phenomenal job. Avonte Maddox, phenomenal job with the execution of that punt. Any concern about Jake Elliott and the lack of confidence changing the way the Eagles' DNA, bottom line?
Yeah, I think he struggled in 2020 really bad when he only had 73.7% of his makes that year. So he's had struggles before. Kickers in the NFL are generally, I think, struggling. There's a conspiracy theory that maybe they changed the kicker balls or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. Who knows?
There's always a conspiracy for everything. There's always the drones, by the way. Have you seen the drones, BLG?
Well,
maybe that has something to do with it.
Yeah, I don't know which ones you're talking about. There's there could be different ones going on. But I think I'm not concerned about him like the big picture. I'm obviously right now he's struggling, and that's concerning. I don't think this means like his career is over because he's having a bad year. I've seen him bounce back from bad years before. So unfortunately, it might just be a bad year for him. To answer your question about the larger point, I mean, I didn't like that decision to punt in that situation, as my good friend Jimmy Kensky outlined, like in a very oversimplified way of looking at it, is that one choice of the three choices that you have between going for it, kicking the field goal, or punting is the only choice that 100% guarantees the Panthers will have a chance to go down the field and beat you like that.
Yeah.
You're giving them that chance for certain. Whereas, maybe you make the field goal. Obviously, you're not feeling like amazing about that, but there's a good chance that you just win the game, basically. Essentially, you go up 2 possessions at that point, or you go for it and you believe in your offense, which was struggling, sure. But like, if you truly trust your defense, which is the line of reasoning that Nick Sirianni used, then I think you should be able to trust them on a shorter field, which also gives you more time to get the ball back if they do score, because then like the worst case scenario there isn't the Panthers scoring at all. It's the scoring very slowly and not leaving you time enough on the clock. So I just didn't like how that decision was handled. And I do think it was probably the wrong move to go away from Jake Elliott there.
I agree. BLG has the trend of this offense going more and more away from the passing game, becoming more and more of a run team, topped off with an ugly game where you squeaked by the Panthers. Has that changed your expectation or your thought process on what this team can do and what this team can accomplish this season?
No, because again, I don't think like this is the floor, and that is concerning. I think that's the concerning thing. It's not concerning because this is the norm. I think we're going to see every week. As I said earlier, I think they can and will be better than this. But that the fact that this can be the floor, yes, that is concerning to me. But I don't think it's the baseline performance I'm expecting week in and week out. And I still think
kind of scale back to this floor
in terms of
diminishing the passing game by their own account. I mean, they,
unintended consequences to everything. They run it too well.
Yeah, it's again, I think it's the problem here is you're kind of betting on the exception just based on history. Like it's not that the Eagles with this model can't win the Super Bowl. They absolutely can. There's teams that win the Super Bowl in different ways. It's not one formula fits all, but the trend, obviously, the overwhelming trend is that passing offense will have success, which is why Jeffrey Lurie, stresses that and invests in that. So I think they can bet against the trend in a weird year where the NFL kind of seems to be a little bit more run heavy and run successful than it normally is. But I do think when you're betting against history, it's not the best place to be in.
Yeah, I say it all the time, Brandon. It's about margin of error. The Eagles are decreasing that margin of error by the way they're playing. And Jake Elliott adds to that. Not only the passing game, but losing confidence. You're decreasing the margin of error, and that's never a good thing. At Brandon Gowton, make sure you follow BLG on the X platform. Read him at bleedinggreennation.com. His staff does a tremendous job covering this team. Your one-stop shop, I like to call it, for the latest Eagles news. Everybody, I like the one headline. Apparently, every Eagles coach and player has to comment on Jalen Hurts because it is. I mean, T.O.'s coming up. The feud, it reignited the greatest feud in Eagles history. That's how much. Yeah, Brandon made a mistake on this one. I love BG, but boy, he shot himself in the foot.
Yeah,
on this one. End it with Vic Fangio and the defense. They're getting a pass, man. That was their worst performance since the bye week. I think that's pretty clear. They still only gave up 16 points, though. I'm a little bit concerned with Thielen and his route running. When you see potentially what lays up, and you see the St. Browns of the world, you see the Jeffersons of the world, guys who can really beat you with route running. And I've been waiting for the shoe to drop with these young defensive backs. It hasn't. Any concern about that showing up a little bit?
Yeah, again, that's the part where I'm willing to give the Eagles benefit of the doubt. I think the defense has earned that in grace, where the Panthers offense, has been playing better. And the Panthers offensive line isn't a bad offensive line. And Bryce Young made some incredible plays. Obviously, when it looked like they just had the game wrapped up, sort of, at the end there, backed up against their own goal line, Bryce Young made an even better throw. So, I think part of that, I'm not the biggest fan of you have to tip their hat because obviously, you have to control it and you're getting paid as well. But I think I'm willing to give the defense a little bit more grace in this game. Especially because they had some, doing some bad field position things, like the Eagles coming off of that missed Jake Elliott field goal. So I think they did enough. And I expect higher of them moving forward, but I'm willing to say, okay, this is just kind of one weird / not top performance for them. And I think they'll be able to rebound in the way that, I don't think the offense has earned that same level of benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. And by the way, they only gave up 16 points and 302 yards. So it's not like they got absolutely.
They're over 300 first time since the bye. It's crazy. We say that, BLG. We're like, can you imagine saying this back in July of training? Oh, the defense is given the benefit of the doubt, not the offense on this team.
Yep.
It's unbelievable what Vic Fangio has done with that unit. And the all-star team, I don't want to call them dream team because Vince Young isn't here, but it's great. Everything's great. Saquon's great. Offensive line, receivers, and the full product. The sum is not greater or equal to its parts.
Yeah.
That's concerning.
It's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's a great way to put it. BLJ, thanks for joining. Make sure you guys all follow BLJ at Brandon Gowton on X. Go and read them at bleedinggreennation.com. It's one of the best Eagles websites out there. BLJ, we appreciate you joining, man. We'll talk to you again soon.
See you guys.
Thanks, bud.
BLJ joining the show today. A couple minutes left on the show, and we will we'll close it up here. Any more super chats? Let me double check. Nope, all good on that front. Johnny Mac, you know the saying there, where there's smoke, there's fire. And the more you tell me you don't think this is an issue, I got to be honest, John. I think this is an issue, this thing. I really do. It's just my gut feeling. Doesn't mean I'm right.
I just want to say I think the passing offense is a big issue. I don't think the secondary stuff. I think the issue is now highlighted. And
I think the secondary stuff could grow and become a bigger issue if they're not able to get this course corrected quickly. We're in week 15, John, not week 6.
If they can't correct this, you're going to be right. But I still think the bottom line is because it's about what's going on the field.
Right.
Like if this continues the rest of the year, and I don't think it can, just from a odd standpoint, I don't think they could continue to be as bad as they have been the past 2 weeks. But if by some stretch of the imagination that continues, then you're having serious discussions about the quarterback in the offseason. That's how bad it will get. But I don't think it has to do with relationships. I think it has to do with what's going on the field. Yeah, the fact that and let's default to, for argument's sake, they don't like each other anymore, which I'm not saying is true. I'm defaulting for
right.
Who cares? All right. As T.O. pointed out, Donovan, he couldn't stand Donovan.
Yeah.
Donovan throwing the football.
But Donovan didn't have this issue. Like, I'm worried that the on-field issue is going to permeate into the locker room. And then my next fear is, based on what happened last season, I know nobody wants to talk about last season, but you're analyzing how they handled that. Is Nick Sirianni a good enough leader to keep the chaos at bay? And I'm not saying that to knock Nick, but I think this becomes a complex problem where you're dealing with your highest paid players unhappy while you're also winning a lot of football games. If they don't get the passing game figured out, will he be able to handle?
Well, even last year, I think the disconnect was on the field. I don't think it was off the field.
Yeah, but ultimately it permeated. I mean, what happens.
Well, yeah, when you lose,
just like everybody does. Just like if you're very successful, everybody talks about the vibes in the locker room. It's the same.
But that's what I'm saying. I'm not concerned about the vibes in the locker, because the vibes will take care of themselves if you're successful on the field, and the vibes will go in a negative direction if you're not successful on the field.
So is your general feeling that they will fix it on the field?
Well, they haven't even lost the game yet. So when you talk about the collapse last year with San Francisco, Dallas, and really San Francisco kind of broke them.
Yeah.
It kind of said, all right, that team is fucking better than us. And, kind of broke them. They haven't had that moment. Now, Pittsburgh comes in here and they throw for 60 yards. Maybe that's that moment. And maybe I'll entertain that thought a little bit more next week. I don't think that's going to happen.
Because I think last week showed that winning is not ultimate. I mean, winning is obviously important, but it shows you that the team is not satisfied just on winning.
Well, because the team has greater expectations, even though they talk the talk, and it's about this week. They have we know what the expectations are. The expectations are to go far in the playoffs. And they know if they throw the ball like they have the past 2 weeks, they're not going far in the playoffs. I think that is pretty evident that they now understand that. I think they always understand it, but I think it's plainly evident that the guys in the locker room understand that. And, when you're talking about the passing game, and you can bring up Kellen Moore, you can bring up Doug Nussmeier, you can bring up Nick Sirianni, but it's about the guy on the field. and I'm glad BLG brought up, Tom Brady. Josh McDaniels ain't a good head coach, but he got 2 opportunities, and he got a second opportunity after it was a freaking disaster as a head coach. Same thing with Adam Gase and Peyton Manning. Got 2 opportunities. I mean, he's one of the worst coaches ever, head coaches. They elevated their coordinators. So while I put some of it on the plate, this is about the quarterback,
Yeah,
man.
100%. It is. Anybody that says it's not is, I think, just ultimately beating around the bush or lying to themselves.
Yes, it's about the quarterback. And he's still got this ability to make plays and, pick up and make plays at big spots. And you shouldn't dismiss that because that's a big part of it. But I don't want to count on off schedule stuff. It's great when it's there, but when
it's got to be secondary though to on schedule.
It's got to be, by definition, it's got to be secondary.
Yeah, John. Let me play out a quick scenario for you. The Eagles lose by 10 plus points to the Steelers on Sunday, and the passing game doesn't look any better at all. Where are the Philadelphia Eagles?
Oh, it's not, not panic driven, but yeah,
are the fire alarms going off?
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's going to be a bad week. It's going to be a bad week. If they lose significantly and can't pass the ball, it's going to be a bad week.
I'm calling this a must win. I'm calling this a fucking must win.
Understand. I'm not going to call it this game, man. I'm not going to call it must win because they're already in the playoffs.
Yeah, I know you're not. I am in terms of, I don't believe that the people in the locker room that have to keep this thing together, if this gets ugly, are going to be able to do it if they can't correct these problems and quick.
I don't think, but hey, I'll say I've said the same thing after the San Francisco game. Like, if you don't lose a game in over 2 months, like I'm not gonna jump off the Walt Whitman when you lose a game, and you still have everything in front of you. But as last year proved, it doesn't mean you're gonna fix it,
right? And it doesn't mean everything is all peaches and cream. Let's go do a super chat here before we get out of here. Brian Pumper, Brian Johnson, Nick Sirianni, and AJ Brown. How many more people is he going to have a fallout with before we point it at number 1? Hurts has an inflated ego. Now, I'm not going to go down this route, but I will say, isn't there a little bit of a trend developing? Like, you go back to the offseason, we talked about this. Twice Hurts threw his head coach under the bus. The coordinator was fired.
Well, yeah,
I'm just saying. I don't know.
And by the way,
is it not a trend? Am I overblowing it? Maybe. I'm fine if you tell me I am, but Hurts is the common denominator.
I don't think Hurts had a fallout with Brian Johnson, but I'll disagree with that part of it.
Okay,
but with Nick, I mean, yeah, there's some disconnect at times, and AJ, I don't even know if there's a disconnect with AJ, other than they've probably grown apart a little bit, and that might be more life, as I said, having a family, things like that, more than anything else. They still seem to get along on the sidelines, yada yada yada. AJ's always frustrated, like any receiver, when he doesn't get the football. Everybody else is frustrated. So does he have an inflated ego? I don't know. Does anybody? He's got the inflated ego of anybody else that makes $250 million. I think that gives anybody a little bit of an ego.
That's fair.
I've always thought he was one of the more mature 20 young people I've ever met.
He was. So, I think that's objectively true.
So I don't agree with. He's not playing well.
He's
like
not.
All the other stuff is white noise. He's not playing well.
But he isn't. You're right, 100%. My fear is that the regression has been happening for a year and a half, and we're now reaching a crux point where his best friend, AJ Brown, in the offense is like, yo, dude, this is not it. And now could it reach a breaking point potentially?
Well, and there's unintended consequences to everything. And the fact that they've gone down this direction because of an historic season by Saquon Barkley, ostensibly you say, historic season, I'll take that. There's unintended consequences to everything. Everything. Even to that. Because I lived through it with Adrian Peterson. They couldn't throw the ball. Now we are again. They can't throw the ball. There's unintended consequences to everything.
Yeah, Bodis Actor just had a good comment. We did talk about this at the bye week, that the schedule might allow for some of these concerns to be hidden. And ultimately, they're now rearing their head again, and we'll see how the Eagles handle it now. Lauren Crampsey again. Lauren, thanks for all your support today. It means a lot to us. Just looked up Shady's 2013 stats. Christ, Nick Foles had 400 passing yards and 7 touchdowns in that Oakland game. Yeah, that was the famous 7-touchdown game from Nick Foles.
Well, you don't even have to go back to Shady's. You'd see the way.
Is that the year though that he set the record? I think it is, right? I think that's why she brought up
2013. Detroit this year runs the ball very effectively, have similar yardage numbers with 2 backs, but they have a 2-back system. They actually run the football even more than the Eagles, at least from a growth standpoint. And they throw the ball very effectively. Derrick Henry's having a very similar year to Saquon Barkley, a little bit behind, right? But very similar. And Baltimore throws the football very effectively, even though they didn't against the Eagles. But in general, they throw it very effectively. Green Bay has a good running game with Josh Jacobs. They throw the ball very effectively. Minnesota has a good running game with Aaron Jones. They throw the ball effectively. You can throw the ball effectively if you have a good running game.
Yeah.
The Eagles have teetered to the point where they don't have a good passing game. And, it's probably better to be a little bit more balanced, even if that means 1,800 instead of 2,100.
They have an awful passing game based on the talent they have on the roster. That is completely true.
Like
you can't judge the Panthers passing game the same way you judge the Eagles passing game. They don't have the talent. They don't have the players. They don't have the personnel we have.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And all those teams, Tennessee, who were the other ones at the bottom?
Giants.
Think about that group. Think about those 4 teams.
I know.
Think about the talent.
Somebody called me a charlatan on YouTube because I pointed out that they're bottom 5 in the passing game, and that's not good. Oh, yeah, the passer rating is good. Who the fuck cares? You have A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. We can't throw the fucking ball. We had 108 yards. We can't throw the ball right now.
Ask whoever criticized you, what is passer rating? Ask them. They won't know. I guarantee you. They won't even know how it's calculated.
Box of rocks. Last super chat. John, I know you got to go. Sorry, man. James Carver. But as Brian suggests, and you've said before, Jalen still hasn't taken accountability for even the Seattle game, much less anything else. And then also look at the press conference this week, James Carver. I'm just doing what I'm told. John, what say you to that?
Yeah, I've said for a while he's not the most accountable guy in the world. And that Seattle game, to this day, he's never, if AJ didn't take accountability for that, we would never know, because Nick made himself look like a fool by jumping on a sword for Jalen and AJ. So, I mean, he did. If you look at the post-game press conference after Carolina, he did admit that the passing game isn't what it should be, what it needs to be. So he's improved a little bit in that. But the rule for coaches, I say it all the time, the rule for coaches and quarterbacks in this league is when things are going good, it's we. When things are going bad, it's me. And as long as you adhere to that, you're fine. When you don't adhere to that, then you have some issues.
We'll see how it plays out. Johnny Mac.
See Matt Eberflus, by the way. See Matt Eberflus.
Yeah, seriously. All right, Johnny Mac, I know you got to run. Appreciate you doing it, brother. I'm going to wrap up here. I got a couple thoughts I want to give the people just because I got to give them the update on the 2:00 show today. I appreciate you doing it, Johnny Mac. Great show, man. We'll talk to you tomorrow morning.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
All right. Good stuff. Johnny Mac joining me here on Birds 365. Great show today on Birds 365. We held John a little over. He's got to get down there to the NovaCare complex. Appreciate all the super chats today. Joe Whip asked, what's the show we getting at 2 today? Joe, that's my next order of business. I got to figure out what's going on with Big Sills. If he can do a show today, we might have another issue, another setup where he does a show briefly from the car or whatever he's going to have to do. I don't know. I'm not sure if his power is going to come back up or not. And then I'll probably do something again this afternoon. I do have the night show tonight, the Pat Callahan This Week in Pro Football, so I won't be able to do the same thing I did yesterday, but maybe I'll do something. I don't know if the people will want to join me again, but if not, we can just have I'll have a show, a little Zander Krause show I'll do, at least if Big Sills can't do a full 4 hours. So I know it sucks right now because this is a prime week to be doing shows and obviously is a big hit on the network. So I got to figure it out, but we will figure that out. I want to thank again everybody for all the chats today, all the likes, all the support. Everybody, like Chris Scott says, no one's a snowflake. We just think you guys go overboard with the criticism. Chris, I tell you how I feel, dude. I mean, listen, I'm not, if you think I'm overboard, that's fine. Then that's just my personality. I mean, I'm not the kind of guy that's going to sit here and say, oh, it doesn't look good, but everything is going to be all right, guys. That's just not my personality. It's not who I am. It's not how I think about things. So if you don't like it, I'm sorry. You're going to have to find a new show. I don't come up here and try and be overly negative. I don't come up here and try and be overly positive. I try and tell you where I'm at, what I'm thinking, and what I'm seeing, and that's what I give you. And I think that's why some people like it. I don't know. Can't speak for everybody, but if I'm not glazing your team, I think there's plenty of other channels you can go and find some of that glaze. But great show today, everybody. We appreciate you being here. Yeah, I agree with this. Tim Johnson, iron sharpens iron. Criticism is needed to grow, good and bad. Last thing before I get out of here. I have a real concern, speaking of the people who think I'm negative, if we don't win this fucking game, if we don't win this game versus the Steelers this week, and the passing game doesn't get going a little bit more, I have a bad feeling this thing's going to fall out from under us. Why should we believe that we have the leaders in the locker room to manage the chaos when they couldn't manage the chaos last year? Who have we added to the locker room? I guess Saquon. That's a good rebuttal. Would be Saquon. But we had Brandon Graham last year. He couldn't get it back on the track. Had Nick Sirianni. Had Jalen Hurts. Had A.J. Brown. Like, why are we sure that we can manage the chaos in the locker room when we couldn't manage it last year? Maybe Saquon will be that guy, but in a way, I'm almost thinking now Saquon's becoming a lightning rod because think about it. AJ was here, right? AJ's here cooking 2 years in a row, 1,400 plus yards. He's the guy. He's the best player on the offense. He made our team work. What an amazing trade. Oh, everything is great in AJ Brown land. Now the new guy shows up in Saquon Barkley. He's setting the records. He's in the MVP talk. The offense is a running offense. And now we can't pass for shit. Like, there's a human element there that I think people are missing. A.J. Brown's like, yo, dude, this was my fucking offense. You show up and now we can't pass for shit. I think listen, I'm not saying it's going to be the problem, but I'm saying it's worth discussing and worth keeping an eye on here as we get close. I don't know, man. Don't you agree? Like, if you're the man somewhere and then someone shows up after you and they become the man, doesn't that create a little bit of a human element where you're, I don't want to say jealous, but you're pissed? I don't know. I ain't down bad, Flex. I'm not there yet. I'm not down bad, but if we lose to the Steelers and it's ugly, Flex, you better believe, man, this thing is not, I don't think this thing is going to end well. I really don't think it's going to end well. Chris follows up and says, I'm a member on 500. Joey Shakes, chalk it up. All great people, 500 Shakes and Tone. Love them all. I'm a member on their channels as well, by the way. I appreciate that they're positive, but that's their nature. Like I just said, that's cool. That's their personality. I don't have a problem with that being their personality. It's not my personality, Chris. I see issue, I call out issue. I don't feel good. I'm telling you, I don't feel good. They're all cool people, though, and they're all great creators. We got a lot of them in Philly, by the way. I know Philly Mike was in here earlier. That was pretty cool. I don't know if he's still in here, but That was pretty cool to talk to see Philly Mike in here. He's a good channel. Yeah, you're not going to get Eagles glaze all day here, man. I appreciate it. Chris, I appreciate it, man. I still love you too. All right, that's going to wrap it up. We appreciate all of you guys for being here on Birds 365 today. I'll keep you posted on what the hell is happening with the afternoon show today. We are down bad right now based on rolling blackouts in California, which suck, obviously. But we'll figure it out. We'll be live. We'll do something. I'll do something for the great people of JAKIB Nation, and I appreciate each and every one of you guys. Hit that like button on your way out. Are we up to like 200? Where are we at on the like button? 156. All right, decent day. Hit that like button on your way out. See how close we can get to 200. Appreciate all of you guys, and I'll catch you tomorrow on Birds 365, and maybe later today, by the way.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate, inside the locker room, and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.